Hello everybody, PT here. I just saw the movie War for the Planet of the Apes, and I have some thoughts. So I want to talk about that today, and I want to talk about 3 writing lessons that we can learn from War for the Planet of the Apes. Since we're going to be getting in depth to the plot and some of the writing lessons from this, there are going to be quite a few spoilers, so I highly recommend if you've not seen the movie, not watching this video yet. It is a very worthwhile movie. I liked it a lot. There are a few problems with it, like the villain's motivation in a couple places was a little strange. But overall, I did like the movie a lot, and it's one of the better movies I've seen this year. So really, I do recommend don't watch this unless you've seen the movie. Then come back and watch it. The first lesson that we can learn from War for the Planet of the Apes is having your hero have minor successes along the way. So this movie, Caesar loses a lot. He fails to protect his family. He fails to protect the community of apes at large. He fails to evade capture. He fails to help his people escape again and again. Every time he tries to do something almost, he fails at it. Really, the funny part about this movie is that in the War for the Planet of the Apes, like the apes pretty much lose the war. They've lost the war like halfway through this movie. However, something that the movie series has built up from the very beginning is this idea of apes are strong together. They talk about it a lot in this movie, but it's really set up all the way back in the rise of the Planet of the Apes. It's not just when Caesar gets smart that he starts to have breakthroughs. It's once he realizes he needs to stop the infighting between them, he needs the other apes to be smart too, and he needs them all to work together. That's when the apes are able to escape and go off into the woods and all that stuff. So in this movie, even though he keeps getting beat down, he keeps getting captured, he's getting punished, all this terrible stuff is happening to him, he has tiny moral victories along the way. And each of those is kind of defending that idea of apes are strong together. So he keeps making little stands for the group of apes. And whenever we see him not giving in and focusing on the idea of apes are strong together and doing things to defend them as a group, that's a little success. And even though this movie has a pretty bleak tone, I mean, it's basically like concentration camps of the apes. Even though we have all this really depressing stuff going on, he has all these little victories throughout that don't release the tension of the bigger goal, but also keep our spirits up as the audience and keep a little bit of that tension off so that we're able to make it through to the final big payoff. The second writing lesson I want to talk about is sidekicks. In this movie, there is a character called Bad Ape who's very funny, and I've seen a lot of reviews and things like that talk about him as kind of one of the breakouts stars of this movie is this character Bad Ape. And Bad Ape is basically your classical funny sidekick. And I think sidekick sometimes has a bad connotation. We think about, it just being a dumb, worthless character. But one of the really important functions that sidekicks play in books and movies, whatever, is they serve to say things that the hero can't say. And that is exemplified very well in this movie. Bad Ape is constantly scared about what they're going to do. He's constantly saying all the terrible consequences that could come out of what they're about to do. And Caesar gets to be the strong one, the determined one, and who's not wavering in his mission, while Bad Ape is being there to remind us as the audience what the danger is. If everyone was just being completely brave and going into this military zone with no fear, we as the audience wouldn't understand the danger here as much. But Bad Ape is there to present it. So I think a lot of times we think of sidekicks maybe as like an outdated idea or kind of a waste. But I think as this movie shows, sidekicks can play an important role. And I think Bad Ape is a great example of kind of what a minor character can do in that type of a role. The third and final writing lesson I'm going to talk about is the difference between a Deus Ex Machina and a eucatastrophe. Deus Ex Machina generally refers to some unexpected event happens and saves the characters from a terrible peril that they could have not escaped from otherwise. And in some ways, you could look at the end of this movie as a series of Deus Ex Machinas. There's a few things that happen. The army from the north comes just when the apes are trying to escape and kind of covers their escape and saves them in that way. Later, when the army from the north is kind of won and they're turning towards the apes, there's a giant avalanche of snow that comes and buries the army from the north. Also, when Caesar goes to kind of confront the colonel, he has just happened to come down with that mysterious illness that the humans are getting. So there's a series of things that you can kind of look at as just like happy accidents, Deus Ex Machina type things. But I would say this is not actually Deus Ex Machina. It's actually a eucatastrophe. It's actually a word that was created by J.R.R. Tolkien, and it basically means a good catastrophe, the good version of a catastrophe. And the difference that J.R.R. Tolkien talked about is that a eucatastrophe comes out of something that has been built up already in the world. It's kind of an inevitable conclusion that isn't just a crazy, out of nowhere, unexpected thing. A lot of people, of course, talk about the eagles in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Eagles are always coming in to save people unexpectedly, and he would defend that as being a eucatastrophe and a part of the world that has already been built up and makes sense for the story. But I think in this movie in particular, it's a little bit different in that the movie does a great job of setting up everything that happens at the end. Even though it happens somewhat unexpectedly in some cases, is very well set up. And it really all builds out of the Woody character. No, not that Woody. Woody Harrelson, this character, the Colonel. We talked about earlier that with the apes, the theme throughout the series is really the apes are strong together and about them working together. With humans and the inevitable downfall of humans throughout this series, a lot of times it's really just based around their own hubris. And the Colonel character in this movie is like the embodiment of that hubris that we've seen throughout. We see in this movie, I just talked about at the beginning, that his motivations don't totally make sense to me, but we do see him as like this living embodiment of hubris, where he's challenged by this army from the north, and he decides to just go face them, to move his people up to this base where he's going to face this army from the north. And that's constantly this looming threat that is built up, so that when they do show up, it's definitely not unexpected. It's just like the payoff of his hubris. So the writing lesson there is really, if you're going to have something that's not in your hero's control at the end that comes to save them, you have to really set it up, either with something that the hero does that drives that inevitability to happen, or something that the villain does that brings it on themselves. So again, 3 writing lessons are: let your heroes have little victories along the way, having a sidekick-like character to say what the hero can't, and setting up your ending either to be the positive result of something your hero does or the negative result of something that your villain brought on themselves. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment below. I'd love to hear what you think of War for the Planet of the Apes and these writing lessons and how you use them. Please subscribe to see more of these videos. Also, here's a link to my other channel where I'm on a really dumb quest to review every Netflix original movie. My first one is up now, and that is Shimmer Lake. That'll do it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.